Hi, this is the third part of the series Roaring Kitty and the Big Short Squeeze, specifically outlining what the investigators are looking for, where they're looking, and who else might be involved. In part one, I tried to answer the question, where did Roaring Kitty come up with over $200 million since we last saw him? And what I found was incredible. In part two, I laid out a plan using real time events that the regulators would be looking at to better understand what Roaring Kitty was doing. Now the question is, did Roaring Kitty act alone? This video will reveal exactly where to find the answer, what data investigators are looking at, the questions they'll be asking, and the one date that contains all the answers. Again, my name is Felix Fry. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Let's get started. First and foremost, I wanted to be clear that I do not know Keith Gill, aka Roaring Kitty, and have zero connections to anyone that might know Roaring Kitty, at least that I know of. I do not know anyone at the SEC or the Massachusetts Regulators Office who publicly stated that they are looking into his trading in GME. This video contains my own thoughts trying to answer the question that the regulators are asking themselves. Is there stock manipulation here, or even a conspiracy going on behind the scenes? Let's look at the chart of GME again from April 24th to June 13th. Now let's overlay the plan I outlined in part 2. In phase 1, you had a setup where a group of investors bought out of the money call options. Then a group of investors, the early birds, were led into the play. There's a catalyst to incite the crowd, which caused a spike in the stock. And then some large sales from investors who bought those options during the setup. Most of the money in this whole plan was made in phase 1. I estimate that Roaring Kitty made over $200 million in just 3 weeks. In phase 2, it appears Roaring Kitty may have started buying stock. I don't know if it was the first time. He also could have been buying stock in phase 1. But the Massachusetts regulator announced that they were investigating Roaring Kitty here. Why there? Maybe they saw the unusual buying and selling activity in phase 1. The massive losses taken by investors caught up in the hype. Then saw Roaring Kitty come in again buying stock and options here. Maybe they wanted to warn retail investors from getting duped again. Maybe. In phase 3, Roaring Kitty sold his options without telling the market first, which breaks a little unknown and hardly used law that regulators might use to apply pressure as they try to better understand what happened at the beginning. You see, by the time we get to the first meme, the number of investors involved in GME stock and options is through the roof. Trying to figure out what's happening here is infinitely more difficult than understanding what happened right here, April 24th to May 2nd. So that's where the regulators will likely focus their attention. The setup happened between April 24th and May 2nd, but let's start with April 24th and April 25th. This is ground zero. Regulators will be looking at who bought all these call options on April 24th. You can see them here. And then again on April 25th. Why is it easy to find these two dates? Just follow the money, meaning when someone sells and cashes out with millions here, just look at where they bought those options. That brings you back to April 24th and April 25th. Regulators will also look at the next range of dates within the setup, asking themselves who bought out of the money call options between April 26th and May 2nd, and has the mix of buyers changed in any way. Now, May 2nd is very important. As I showed you in part 2, the plan, something changed in the trading of the options and the stock. Volumes took off, and it seems like many other investors got in. So what exactly are investigators looking for? Obviously, foul play, which translates to market manipulation. But what type of activity are they specifically looking for? Well, they played out a perfect scenario in the movies. The 1987 movie Wall Street is a favorite of mine. It shows how a Wall Street hotshot lures a motivated young man into a scheme that nets everyone millions of dollars. Watch this important scene.
Bright, but not bright enough, Sherlock. Let's roll the dice and play a little Monopoly. What box is Solari gonna land on in Erie, Pennsylvania?
Jesus Christ. He's buying Anacott steel.
Okay. When the market opens tomorrow, I want you to buy 1,500 July 50 calls. You hear me?
1,500, yes, sir.
And start buying 1,000 share blocks and take up to $50. When it reaches 50, give out a little taste to your friends. Then I want you to call the Wall Street Chronicle, extension 1605. You tell the man Blue Horseshoe loves Anacott steel. You got that?
The Wall Street Chronicle.
All right, congratulations, buddy. You scored. Talk at you.
All right.
Start buying Anacott steel across the board. Use the offshore accounts. And keep it quiet.
Frank, 10,000 ANC at 46. Let me know how the options are opening, okay? Thank you. How is Anacott steel?
5 and 3 quarters, 6. 2,000 up.
6 or 10,000?
I'll sell you 2,000. 2,000 Anacott.
Not what I said. I said 20,000 shares.
Anacott, raise it 6.
What do you want to buy?
Can I fill 8,000? At a quarter. 8,000 at a quarter?
I'll take 8,000.
8,000 more, raise it a quarter. Make it 6 to a half, 2,000 up. What do you want to do?
Yeah, I know what time it is. I realize that the market, and this is what I'm saying to you. We have important financial news, Mr. Early. Important financial news that just happens to concern your future. You could benefit a great... Oh, come on, what the hell's going on?
Anacott steel. Put your best customers in it.
You're starting to see what might have happened? The setup zone I showed you in GME is not much different than what you just saw. This play and various forms of this play has been used for decades. I'm not uncovering anything new for regulators. In fact, this is probably week one education for any new hire. The issue is, can they prove it? Decades ago, it was infinitely more difficult to prove this type of manipulation. Today, the government has access to a massive trove of data and can spot unusual activity quite quickly. Then they simply ask the computers questions to see if they can spot any patterns or connections. Let's try to visualize what this looks like and stick to April 24th to May 2nd. The regulators will likely get a list of all option call buyers in GME on these dates. From here, we will call it the list. They then retrieve data on these individuals like what city do they live in? Where do they work? Where do they go to school? Then questions about their trading activity. When did they buy GME or GME calls? When did they sell it? Are they active traders? Have they traded in GME before April 24th? How much options premium in dollars did they spend relative to their portfolio size? Do they have a pattern of spending that much with options? The questions would extend into their social media accounts. What are their social media handles? Do they actively post on social media? Did they post on GME? Has their activity changed since prior to April 24th? Do they follow Roaring Kitty? How long have they followed Roaring Kitty? Did they stop following Roaring Kitty? Now one might think, what would any of this say? Roaring Kitty has millions of followers. What in the world would this tell anyone? Well, the regulators understand that usually people involved in any type of conspiracy try to cover their tracks. So for example, removing a follow 1 week before April 24th would seem like a good idea, but to a regulator, it might be a flag. To delete posts in panic right after the regulators announce their investigation would also be a flag. But to be clear, by itself, for any individual, this may mean nothing, or as part of that person's overall activity, it can mean something. Which then leads us to the individual's trading memberships. What services is each individual buying or involved in? Do they receive trading information to make their decisions from a Discord trading room? Do they run the trading room? Or are they an influencer within the trading room? Why might this be important? That leads us to May 2nd. Once the regulators have profiles made for each of those individuals, the next stop is to see if there are any connections between the list and Roaring Kitty. This can be quickly done with software comparing multiple datasets. If there are connections, they then would likely want to see if there were phone calls, text messages, or emails between them and Roaring Kitty. From the list, it's obvious they would look for any family members, former co-workers, friends, neighbors. They would also look for any relationship between any of the people within the list outside of Roaring Kitty. Like, these 3 people know this person. The reason why May 2nd is so important is because that's when a good number of connections are made after these GME call options traded at 1:15 p.m. The obvious first question for May 2nd is, who bought those calls? That person is important. It set off a frenzy of buying. But why did this buy start the frenzy and not the 150,000 plus options over the previous 6 trading days? Was this options buyer Roaring Kitty? If not, did this buyer have any connection to any other person on the list? Understanding this moment is key to the investigation, and this is when the data can really start telling a story. Remember, in the Wall Street scene you saw earlier, Gordon Gekko had a point person, his new broker, Bud Fox. Bud Fox was doing some buying for him, and at the end of this scene, he communicated to his friend at the brokerage. This is the following scene where the network gets activated. It's May 2nd in our timeline.
Blue Horseshoe loves Anacott Steel.
Blue Horseshoe loves Anacott Steel sounds very similar to what Roaring Kitty repeats, right? Here's a good look at how the network spreads the news and pumps the stock. That's GME on the right on May 2nd.
Looks like Anacott Steel's in play. Check the arms.
Looks like it's being accumulated. We've got a position in.
Yeah, blue, Anacott. I buy. Yeah. Take it and bid it.
If I'm right, 8 3/4 won't matter. Keep taking Anacott.
This is really special. Anacott.
Buy another 50,000 Anacott.
Bet the ranch.
Buy 100,000 shares.
Wildman is sticking around. It's on automatic pilot to the moon.
If it hits 75, we could clean close to 24 mil.
Pal. First lesson in business, don't get emotional about stock. Clouds the judgment.
Which closed at 51 1/8.
GME stock went up over 50% over one trading day. There were no memes yet, no sign of Roaring Kitty, no news, just a few options trades that were meaningless in the bigger picture. But many investors jumped in. Why is that? Somehow, they got connected into this vortex, but connections leave a trail. That may seem quite complicated to untangle. Again, data solves that problem. We know Roaring Kitty is from Massachusetts. What if you took the list and charted where everyone lived? You might expect people to live in Massachusetts, right? So this chart wouldn't tell you much. This chart with a cluster in Massachusetts would confirm your thought. This chart is even more interesting. What's going on there? Or there? And what if one of those people is Roaring Kitty's cousin or best friend from college? That would be interesting. How about this information? We take the list again. As a hypothetical example, here's the percentage of their account that they invested in GME call options. The thought process is, the higher the percentage, the higher the confidence. Why would someone be so confident 2 weeks before Roaring Kitty ever popped up? The extreme situation is someone who never trades options comes in to open an account with $100,000 on April 17th and then puts it all into out-of-the-money GME call options during this April 24th, May 2nd timeframe. Then 3 weeks later, sells it all and makes $3 million. That activity and variations of it are red flags. And what if all these traders with red flags lived here? You see how easy it becomes to make connections? Now, from the list, let's assume the map showing where they live looks like this. Just random dots with no visual connection. But we also generated a list of 200 trading Discord channels being used by the investors in the list. These are places these traders give or receive information. What if you find that all these traders that bet big are in several different Discord channels, but they all are members of this one Discord channel? Wouldn't that be interesting? Specifically, was the signal to buy passed in that Discord channel? On May 2nd, information about GME call options started to spread. Regulators will want to know where the start of the spread happened and from who. Was it social media? Was it a trading Discord room? What might they find? Perhaps a member of the Discord channel posted the trade. Who was that person? Could it be Roaring Kitty using an alias? Could it be someone trying to activate the network? And why did that trade get picked up so fast? Why was there so much emphasis placed on these relatively small trades? Is the Discord channel somehow involved? Maybe there were 20 Discord channels that got the same post. Who was that poster? More specifically, was it the same person using different aliases on different sites? Given the data, it's not unreasonable to consider a coordinated effort via a network to boost GME stock higher. Again, May 2nd is the key. I believe this is where the regulators are asking questions and gathering information before they start applying pressure to a few people that stand out. Look, I want to be clear. If Roaring Kitty saw the perfect hand, bet big, and simply posted memes on his own, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It becomes a problem if others were involved and played a role in the execution of a plan. That starts to sound more like market manipulation. But we're just going to have to let the regulators figure all that out. Either way, I still hadn't thought about one thing. What did Roaring Kitty have to say? The next video highlights what I saw and heard from Roaring Kitty and why my mouth dropped. It was almost the same expression I had when watching another of my favorite movies. Let me leave you with one of the most amazing endings in movie history. Until next time.
Every creeping scumbag that works the street for a living will know the name of Verbal Kint. The cripple, did you see him? The cripple, which way did he go?
Oh, he went out that way.
I know you know something. I know you're not telling me something. I'm smarter than you. And I'm gonna find out what I want to know, whether you like it or not.
To a cop, the explanation is never that.
You know what I'm getting at,
Verbal,
the truth. Come on, Verbal.
No
Who do you think you're
street? No arch criminal behind it all.
Somebody with power.
There was
somebody who was capable of tracking us from New York to Los Angeles.
It's Kaiser Soze. You think a guy like that is this close to getting caught and sticks his head out?
You get no Kaiser me. Because you're stupid, Verbal. Because you're a cripple.
What I want to know is who's the gimp.
You know the whole fucking time.
Oh, I know that. If he comes up for anything, he's going to get rid of me. But I'm sure Keaton is dead.
I can't feel my legs. Kaiser.
First thing I learned on the job, you know what it was? How to spot a murderer.
Tell me you got the cripple in there from New York.
Yeah.
He mentioned Kaiser Soze.
Who?
After that, my guess is you'll never hear from him again. The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist.